So for a long time, we've been talking about Kelly Loeffler as well as David Perdue, both Republican senators up for re-election in this runoff election. Both of them spent the year doing nothing but personally profiting off of the insider knowledge that they have about coronavirus. It turns out, though, that we do have something to learn from Kelly Loeffler, because she's about to teach us the most important lesson for a successful relationship, which is have shared interests. And it turned out that Kelly Loeffler and her husband do share the same interest of personally profiting from private government information during a pandemic. So for weeks, the couple had done almost nothing but sell stocks based on the knowledge they had about how bad this was gonna get. Loeffler was one of several senators who faced public outrage for unloading millions of dollars in stock before most Americans understood the towering threat posed by the pandemic. Then shortly before the CARES Act, a $2 trillion emergency stimulus package was introduced in the Senate, her husband reversed course and purchased up to $1 million in new shares. Very interesting, because the economy was doing very bad at that point, and we didn't know how much worse it was gonna get. That's a very risky time to be buying stock. Sorry, I mean, if you don't have access to insider information about what's gonna be in legislation that most people don't have, that's like for people like me, not for people like him. So the terms of the CARES Act were still mostly a secret, known primarily to Republican senators, while members of their party crafted legislation. But in the days before the bill's introduction, Sprecher, that is Kelly Loeffler's husband, managed to invest in several industries, insurance and energy, that were poised to take advantage of the bill's very specific provisions. So for instance, deep inside the CARES Act, which became law in late March, there was a tremendous tax break that disproportionately benefited some of the very same industries on which Sprecher had placed a bet. Weird coincidence. As a way of quickly injecting corporations with billions in ready cash, the CARES Act allowed businesses to carry back certain losses to previous tax years and claim a retroactive tax fund. Now, the carryback provision was one that Loeffler could very well have learned about days before the Senate bill went public. In the 3 days just before its unveiling, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin met twice with Senate Republicans behind closed doors to discuss the bill's particulars, and Senate Republicans held a private lunch to brief their members on some specific proposals the bill would contain. The day after the Republican luncheon, March 19th, the CARES Act was publicly introduced in the Senate, complete with the carryback provision. Now, we could go super in depth into all the different stocks that were able to take advantage of that, and how much money they made off of it, and how their stock went up, and how that benefited Sprecher. But long story short, relatively less short, they had information before we did. And while we are right to be more angry at her, an actual elected representative, for using that information and then lying to the public about that same information, she is also clearly sharing information with her husband, and they are benefiting too, not just on selling, but on buying as well. And that should be 100% unacceptable. It should certainly be illegal. It isn't yet, unfortunately. We should work towards that. But in the short term, we should at least reject her being able to have continued access to that private information so that she can profit the same way going forward.
Just, it's right there in plain sight. This is what people should understand. Every time you hear Donald Trump, which he does many times, even in the middle of his embarrassing losses in court over this election, he continues to come back to the stock market and what he's done for it. Oh, look at the stock market. Look at the stock market. When the stock market does go down, he doesn't mention it. When it goes up, he does. Every time he mentions the stock market, I know we've said this, think about whether or not that affects you. When that stock market changed, what happened? Do you have a portfolio, number one? Do you know what the hell a portfolio is? The vast majority of Americans do not have any kind of portfolios where they're then trading and reversing course like her husband did and purchased up to $1 million in new shares. How much money did you put back in the new shares in the middle of this pandemic, if you were ever in it in the first place? So every time they talk about the economy doing great, it's this economy is what they're talking about doing great. Has nothing to do with your wages, has nothing to do with how much you take home, has nothing to do with what they talk about all the time is these dinner table conversations that people have with their families about how they're gonna feed them and how they're gonna pay the bills. These conversations have nothing to do with this economy that they're talking about. But this economy that they're talking about is allowed to be openly fixed for their benefit every time. And then when you bring it up, they go, you're just trying to interrupt us just taking part in the American dream. What part of the American dream do these people have that are challenging you on this? How many of their shares went down? How many of their shares were reversed at the last second? Again, think about it every time. He's talking about Kelly Loeffler and her husband and their connections, and David Perdue and all their connections. Every time he says economy, trust me, he's not talking about your paycheck.
I mean, Like we talk a lot about out of touch politicians, like lots of them, and they're not all Republicans. Nancy Pelosi she doesn't know anything, but about the economy, the real economy. Kelly Loeffler doesn't even know how to pretend. Like that performance at the debate was amazing. Like how entitled to that seat and how sure must you be that voter suppression is gonna give it to you again, that you could perform the way that she did and not have to answer for the fact that she spent the year not pushing for aid for her actual constituents, benefiting herself and her husband. And by the way, this is a stupid thing to say. Like if she was even only as wealthy as your average representative, I would almost sort of understand a little bit of it. Wouldn't be acceptable, should be illegal, at the very least it's immoral. Her and her husband are worth at least $800 million. They were gonna be just fine no matter what, but they still did it. They're so sure that there aren't gonna be any consequences. And thus far they've been proven right. The question is, will there be for the election?
Yeah,
and going forward. Yeah. No, continue.
This failsafe has been put in place. We just talked about the way that the Republicans in Georgia are trying to make sure that people can't vote again in this runoff. This is the failsafe. This is reassurance that she gets. She's like, well, yeah, I've been totally exposed, but all I have to do is go up there and be a robot, and then it doesn't matter as long as I don't say anything. People will continue to just fix this for me. And it's not fixed the way Donald Trump is talking about. It's fixed under the law because they make sure lawmakers put things in place that allow these lawmakers to do things to continue to keep their job and carry on with their insider trade the way Loeffler has been doing. I mean, and this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is how it works. Nobody will deny that.
Should be in jail. Like, think about the message it would send to our elected representatives, both current and future, if these people who profited while just making a mockery of the fact that there was a pandemic that was killing so many people, if they spent the rest of their life in jail or 10 years in jail or whatever. God, that would be so amazing. But there won't be. There won't be. They'll be perfectly fine. All of them will be. I know that there are people that think that there will be any justice beyond the fact that Biden has won. I'm not expecting any of it, man. Even without the pardons, I think Trump is gonna be just fine. His team is gonna be just fine.
Absolutely.
I love that people have that optimism still. I have it in some areas, mostly pen related. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.